What's up, my friends? Welcome to Carpo's Political Corner. Before I get into this, don't hate me just because of my beliefs. I know I get a lot of people who give me shit for being a liberal or libtard, seems to be the word, but that's alright, because I'd rather be a liberal and have heart than be a conservative and try to preserve values that I don't believe are viable in today's world, that I don't believe are working anymore. And I think many of the old ways that we've had, they work for some people, but not for everybody. They work for people who already have means. So, I'm going to try to make this reasonably quick. There's only so much I can say about it. I've pretty much, I've shared my view of politics, how I feel. The whole system's set up. It's all corrupt. Votes are swindled and stolen, and it's just a big clusterfuck out there. However, that doesn't mean that I'm giving up. And by not giving up, that means I have to pay attention. So as I've said before, in a nutshell, I've watched all the debates. I've watched all the debates, even with the GOP, so I can understand what's going on and what these people are saying. So when I say that I'm against Trump, people say, oh, you're just repeating what you heard on the news. And I say, nonsense, I don't watch the news. But it seems there's this ongoing repeating pattern of people saying, you just listen to the media, you just listen to the media. When in fact, I listen to the actual speeches and the person. But it's more than just the things that a presidential candidate is saying. It's what they're not saying that we have to pay attention to. And if we're not aware of the things that are important to others, then the things they're not saying will slip right past us. So I'm going to just quickly say that I think Bernie whipped the hell out of Hillary Clinton the other night at the debate in New York. He just schooled her ass. And, she was reluctant to want to have a debate with him, and that's why. And, because she knew that he would tear her down. And basically, I give her the benefit of the doubt. I do not like Hillary Clinton, but I have to be fair, and I can't use my preconceived notions about her to make a judgment before I watch her speak. So I listened to the whole thing. He went on talking about all these things that we needed to change, and everything he said, Hillary Clinton would just try to defend herself against. It was like the whole time she spent beating around the bush and detracting from the actual subject, which is what we'd expect from Hillary Clinton. And it's the same kind of thing that happens with all the candidates. They just beat around the bush. But Bernie doesn't beat around the bush. He says what he means. He may repeat himself a lot. And sure, he may look disheveled and be a little bit intense. I like that in a guy. I like that in a leader. A leader that's not just intense for the sake of being intense, like Trump, who tries to act tough. Bernie's more like up in your face, like, hey, this is the way things are and we need to fix it. And sure, he doesn't cover all the main things. He talks about how the banks are too big and we need to break the banks up, when in fact a lot of us know that even if you break the banks up, somebody still has to run those banks. They'll still be bought out by the same people who have money, and the biggest problems aren't even being talked about. Things like the Federal Reserve and the IRS, which, if you don't know, are both foreign entities from the U.S. government. They are not foreign, but they're private organizations, private companies. So the IRS is collecting money from you and they're not part of the government. So these are issues that need to be tackled. I don't expect Bernie to be able to jump out and just talk about all this crazy shit that most people aren't even aware of or paying attention. You have to start somewhere. And you have to start at the point where you think the things you think are important. And the things that are important to him are global warming issues. And it's, I know a lot of people say global warming's a hoax. It doesn't really matter if you think global warming's a hoax. The fact is we are polluting the shit out of this world using fossil fuels. So set aside all the bullshit and science and just look around you at the smog in the air. Use common sense and say, okay, we are polluting. There should be better ways to do this. People are getting mesothelioma and carcinoma and all these diseases and whatnot from these factories. And yeah, the Industrial Revolution is having to make some changes now. So people like Bernie are saying this, and then the conservatives are saying, oh, look, he's just trying to ruin our economy and everything. So I just don't agree. I think that the long-term goal for all people is to make sure that others are comfortable and happy as well. Many people are very selfish, and all that matters to them is their lives. So they're willing to vote for whatever brings them the most income right now, the instant gratification. Nobody wants to pay a little more in taxes to make sure that you pay a lot less in health care. and everybody whose company pays for their health care, they're the ones to say, oh, no way, we should abolish government health care. And then the minute they retire, they're ready to get it again for Social Security. And the people who say, we shouldn't have to fund schools, and then as soon as they have kids, they need a school to send their kid to. The system's far from perfect, but there are very few people that are running for office. I should say only one person that really even cares or wants to make a difference, and that's Bernie Sanders. And I'm very honored to know that, not honored, I guess. I just think it's awesome that he's being funded by the people, and that anybody who tries to tear down Bernie, at this point, you'd think that they'd have a lot of ammunition on him, but the arguments against him have been pretty weak. Things like, oh, he's just an old man, or he's Jewish, or he keeps talking about the same things, and some of the people have a major issue with the fact that he's what they might call a socialist, and then they use that word to just run it into the ground, and it's useless. It's useless to call him a socialist or a communist or any of this, because, these are the same just bullshit terms that are being thrown around. We have many socialist programs in this country, and we have decided as a nation to help one another. And when you talk about loving your country, yet you say everybody needs to fend for themselves, that's not loving your country. That's loving yourself and your freedoms. And that comes at the cost of other people. That's not freedom. So when people are suffering and people do need help, sometimes we have to put programs into place to make that happen. Doesn't mean we have to give everybody a free handout. And yes, there are people taking advantage of the system, of course. But most people, and all the people I've met, they want to work. They want to do well. They want to be part of this country, and they feel like they're not part of it because they're cast off to the side. So these are my opinions, of course, and I understand why people have the other view they do. I know why people want Trump. I understand that he's outspoken and he says screw the system, but the problem is, a guy who's ranting and raving about the system being messed up that doesn't have any answers himself isn't somebody that I want in office. And so I'm not opposed to Trump just because he's running for president and he's Trump, nor is it because he's running on the GOP ticket. It's because I think the guy's a complete asshole. And with the small amount of psychology that I've studied, I can tell that not only is he very easily bruised as far as his ego, that shows a kind of a sense of self-esteem issue, such as when people talk about his hands and his hair and he has to defend himself. Instead of laughing it off, he actually is seriously defending himself. This should speak volumes to anyone who really knows personality traits. A person who spends more than a second defending themselves against claims about their appearance is obviously has a very low self-esteem deep down inside. And everybody who I've said that to argues with me. All the Trump fans, they say, how could you say that? He doesn't have a low self-esteem. Look at his ego. It's a mile high. Large egos are used to cover up low self-esteems. So it's pretty obvious that a person who's grown up wealthy and rich and who's done well for himself, or been given money to, regardless of how he made it, the fact is, money doesn't buy happiness. Money does not buy a self-image. We can use it as a mask, but when he walks away from the money and becomes president, all of a sudden there's different expectations on him. People aren't asking him about his businesses or about how much money he has. They're saying, what are you going to do to fix this? And he just makes shit up. So this wasn't intended to be about Trump, but rather I wanted to explain my side on there of why I dislike him. It's not because of what the media tells me. It's not just because he's rich. It's because I think he's an arrogant prick, and he's only self-serving and is doing this for himself, not for the people. So Bernie Sanders is the only one that I can see that is actually doing this for the people, and I sure hope he wins. So peace out.